Hello there and welcome to my channel Pixelology. My name is Sophia and the topics I'll talk about don't always necessitate you being or wanting to be a professional photographer. I want to explain photography and the photography theory to everyone who is interested, no matter if you are in front of the camera, someone who just dabbles in photography, or already has experience. This video is part 2 of a two-part series about typical framing mistakes in people photography and how to avoid them. It is one of the areas that separates the good photographer from the one who doesn't want to educate himself on the subject of photography. If you want to know what other points distinguish the experienced photographer from the hobbyist, watch this video here. For part 1 in the series, where I talk about what to look out for when photographing a person close up, watch this video here. Let's start with the yawning emptiness. So far, we have seen what doesn't look great when you crop an area. Now let's look at the exact opposite. I'll go into more detail on this topic in a separate video, but let me touch on this briefly anyway. In photography, you might have heard people talk about negative space. Negative space isn't called that because it's bad, but rather because it is the space surrounding the area that helps define the main focus of the image, which is called positive space. There is also a difference between negative space and empty space. A negative space, used well, allows an image to breathe and gives the main subject room to develop in contrast to feeling cluttered. Here is a good example. As you can see, the picture doesn't feel as if there is something missing. On the contrary, if something were to be positioned in the space behind her, it would actually look crowded and distract from the main focal point. Now let's look at an image where the empty area was not chosen so optimally. As you can certainly see right away, this image looks very restless and I would prefer to crop the image to the more suitable format. Although it's not as bad as it could be, as the model actually is looking upwards. To determine if negative space is used optimally, you have to not only consider background and foreground, but also composition. In our case, the person would actually be placed exactly in the correct position according to the rules of thirds or the golden spiral. So then, why does it still not look fine? It must have to do with the object itself. The crop of the person is what's wrong with the image as a whole. It looks awkward because you can't make out the person's body and it doesn't look proportionate to the background. It would only feel a little more wholesome if a text were placed in the space above her head. This would separate the image into two different sections, the one with the text and the one containing the model and the waterfall. This alone tells you that the image isn't whole, as the areas don't seem to be connected by anything. Another fact I want to point out is that the empty space offers no added value here. The purpose of the negative space is to frame the focus of the image, to highlight the message. Is the message loneliness? Does it say that a lot has been accomplished already, but there is still a long ways ahead? Let's look at one more image. This one pictures a romantic golden hour setting. Have a look at how the different frames will completely change the image's message. I'm curious to know which one you would prefer. Even with images that were made explicitly for the purpose that something will be inserted into the negative space later, such as postcards or advertising space, the area doesn't look empty or out of place. So the next time you take a picture, consider what the focus of the image is and how to best frame it. If you photograph a person, where does the person look to? Does the dress have an angle? Is her clothing being moved by a wind in a certain direction? Are there natural lines that guide the viewer's eye? Look at other photographers' works. Look at your own. Analyze if the space was necessary or if there is too much space for one photograph. Before we continue, if you like my content, please consider subscribing to my channel and leaving a like. It doesn't cost you a thing, but helps me tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. I really appreciate you taking the time. Now back to the video. Let's have a look at perspective. Perspective can make or break an image. Sometimes it's a useful tool to hide an unwanted background by angling the camera upwards. On the other hand, the right perspective can make a person taller or leaner, while the wrong one can let them shrink or have a giant head compared to their body. I'm sure all of you who have taken a selfie before are aware of the power of angles. Perspective is used to give a two-dimensional image a three-dimensional feel. It's another way to make images more realistic and alive, just like motion blur gives an image the impression of movement. In general, you can differentiate three perspectives: eye level, bird's eye, and street level. It all depends on what your image is meant to say. Do you want people to feel small amidst giant buildings? Then try viewing the world from a lower vantage point. But depending on the position of the object relative to the camera, it can also create a sense of grandeur. It's all down to how much frame space the person or object fills out and how close to the camera one is. A close-up can also give an impression of power to the object you take the picture of. Do you want to give people a broader scope of things? You will most likely try and find higher elevation. But shooting down is also a tool to portray vulnerability or feeling powerless. If you want people to see what a random person would see just passing by on the street, you probably would choose eye level. But perspective is more than where your lens is positioned in relation to the object. Let's have a look at an example, shall we? This couple is sharing a personal moment with us. They seem to have just gotten engaged. Perspective can make us part of the moment, create a feel of being personally involved in this moment, or viewing the moment from the outside. So always consider what you want to achieve with your image. Do you want people to engage, or do you want people to lean back and just watch? Another important issue is using the angles to your advantage. You have to know your angles or the angles of the model in front of you. If you don't, make some quick test photos before you spend a whole afternoon taking pictures in an angle you will later hate. When do I better lean forward when someone is photographing from the bottom up? When do I stretch out my leg to make myself taller? When do I lean back to make my upper body smaller? When do I lean forward and hide my stomach? From a downward angle, your head is the focus of the image and will be the biggest part of the picture. Was it your goal to make your body smaller, or will you lean back and give it more room? Remember, everything angled toward the camera will be more in focus, and everything angled away from the camera will move more into the background. So what do you want people to focus on more? Your face, your legs, or should your body be spaced equally? Just don't overdo it. The farther you lean back to elongate your legs, the bigger your feet will look, and there comes a break-even point, at which time you will actually get smaller as your body seems to fold in half. I will give you further tips and tricks about how to pose in a favorable angle in a separate video. Okay, I hope I could give you some new ideas today to improve your photography. Everything I've talked about or am going to be talking about in the future, I either learned in training, from experience, from the experience of other people or colleagues, or simply doing my research. If you don't agree with my point of view, please feel free to do your own research on the matter concerned. Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate you taking the time. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, Stay safe. Bye!